In 536 AD, the world dimmed. Imagine a sun glowing weakly, casting faint shadows. A chilling year saw summer snow cover parched fields, the air holding a biting chill. Across lands, farmers watched helplessly as crops shriveled, and hunger became an uninvited guest. Desperate hands clawed at bark and weeds. Anything to fill the void. Empires faltered. Dreams of conquest crumbled. As stories of a lurking plague filtered through quiet firesides, a question echoed. Could this be the world's end? Step back to an era painted with intrigue and cloaked in shadows, where a queen's power was a rare, formidable force. In the swirling mists of medieval courts, these royal women transcended ornamental roles carved by patriarchy, becoming regents, diplomats, and warriors. Often behind every king's visage of power loomed a queen's subtle strength. Their influence was neither readily visible nor openly boasted, yet woven into every fiber of their kingdoms. As wives and counselors, queens wove their wisdom into the fabric of medieval politics. More than mere symbols of marital alliances, they guided and tempered their king's decisions in the grimy halls of castles, where power played its relentless games. These queens walked a tightrope, their influence wrapped in the guise of demure submission, while subtly maneuvering the chessboard of power. When fate unwound life's delicate tapestry, leaving thrones bereft of kings, queens donned the mantle of regency, stepping into authority with resolute grace. Tasked with leading realms through turbulent seas, they embraced the challenge, showcasing acumen in governance and military strategy with regal poise. The French civil strife, Armagnacs versus Burgundians. The origins of this sanguinary feud can be traced to the tangled web of alliances, ambitions, and grievances that characterized the French nobility. At its core, this conflict was a struggle for influence over the crown. As each faction sought to sway the balance of royal favor in their direction, what began as political maneuvering rapidly escalated into widespread violence, testing loyalties and shifting allegiances with alarming speed. France found itself divided not by an external threat, but by virulent internal hostility. The rivalry was not simply a clash of political ideologies. It was deeply personal, fueled by ambitions and affronts that flowed through noble veins like poison. Bernard VII, Count of Armagnac, led his faction with unwavering loyalty to the crown, seeking to curtail the influence of the Dukes of Burgundy. In dusty chambers where words held the sharp edge of swords, their negotiations resonated, echoing the harmonious interplay of wit and acumen. But the chessboard of power extended beyond council chambers. Some queens, defying conventions, donned armor and took up arms. In looming battles, they stood shoulder to shoulder with knights, imbued with a spirit that outshone societal constraints. Their presence on battlefields, where the air hummed with the metallic scent of unsheathed swords, defied rigid gender norms, stamping their legacies into the soil. Land was a primary compass of power, and many queens, as astute proprietors, managed vast estates with unparalleled precision. Their economic influence surged through their dominions, guiding agriculture, justice, and governance. Their lands were more than simple parcels, they were lifeblood, lending leverage and allowing them to sway political tides. Yet queens held sway not only over earthly matters. Deeply rooted in their time's religious fabric, they stood as pillars bridging the secular and sacred. As patrons of abbeys and churches, their religious roles were strategic, not merely pious. By marrying spiritual patronage with worldly power, they reinforced their rule's divine legitimacy and ensured their family witnessed strength, both earthly and ethereal. Their courts pulsed with creativity and culture, where artists and scholars found fertile ground. Queens acted as conduits of cultural renaissance, their taste shaping an era's artistic direction. The cadence of courtly life played to their patron symphonies, reflecting their visions and philosophies in stone cathedrals and script. Motherhood's allure and pressure drew queens into dynastic ambitions. The duty to carry forth a line to mother heirs commanded their existence. From nurseries' shadowed nooks, they stitched kingdoms' futures, ensuring royal bloodlines flowed strong and steadfast across generations. Within castles, shrouded alcoves, cloaked in murmurs and whispers, queens wielded influence with a deft hand. Mastering intrigue's subtle arts, they maintained power through intelligence networks and strategic alliances. As silent sentinels of sovereign influence, they orchestrated court politics like unseen maestros. Finally, these queens, through tangible and intangible legacies, ensured their imprint remained etched in time. Their endeavors reached beyond corporeal reigns, crafting legacies visible in monumental architecture, cultural innovations, and political moves. They left behind more than memories. Their reigns sowed seeds of continuity and progress, blossoming long after their time. Thus, in medieval Queen's Tale, we find stories of strength cloaked in delicacy, influence born in shadows, and legacies carved into history's bedrock. These women, often underestimated, emerged as indomitable forces, shaping their worlds, the echoes of their endeavors reverberating through history. Eleanor of Aquitaine entered the world in a swirl of music and poetry, born into a domain bustling with troubadours and the scent of roses. Her childhood blended privilege and instruction, an education wrapped in Latin texts and classic tales. When she inherited Aquitaine at 15, she instantly became Europe's most sought-after heir, her kingdom ripe for the picking. But Eleanor was anything but common. From her tutor's feathered quills to bards' hearty laughter, her world was one of influence and intrigue. Raised among southern France's leniencies, where a woman's word could command power, she harbored ambitions that were anything but modest. Marriage to Louis XIV made Eleanor Queen of France, transforming her life from Bordeaux's sunny gardens to Paris's more somber courts. Louis, with his monkish ways, was no match for Eleanor's vivacity. In the stark stone corridors of the French court, where the scent of incense could barely mask cold austerity, Eleanor strove to cultivate art and culture. Her role in the Second Crusade catapulted her into a sphere few women dared tread. Draped in silks and accompanied by a vibrant retinue, she commanded attention, crossing lands with regal defiance. Though the crusade didn't yield victory, it steeled Eleanor's resolve for self-discovery and leadership. Her marriage dissolution was as much politics as passion. The annulling of their union returned Aquitaine to Eleanor, an outcome as strategic as it was liberating. Instead of slipping quietly into obscurity, Eleanor emerged a duchess free to write her own script. Her boldness was further revealed when she married Henry Plantagenet, the fiery counterpart she found missing in Paris. Henry would wear the English crown as Henry II, setting the stage for Eleanor to redefine herself again. England's queen was no meek consort. She stood at an empire's helm, managing lands as vast as they were volatile. Her influence echoed in every fur-lined cloak and whispered council meeting. With passion often equaled by political conflict, Eleanor and Henry's relationship was a delicate dance of power and position. She was more than a mother to their brood. Richard the Lionheart and others would inherit not only her titles, but also her indomitable spirit. Yet even strong alliances strain. Eleanor's part in her son's rebellion against Henry revealed both her audacity and foresight. Imprisoned for treason, she occupied dark, cold castles, her spirit undiminished by stone-floored cells bite. In these quiet years, her legend only grew. Courts buzzed with tales of the imprisoned queen, who continued to exert influence through letters and loyalty. When released, Eleanor resumed her role as a queen mother without skipping a beat. She expertly positioned her children in marriages that would fortify thrones across Europe. Each union became a strand in the vast web she spun, interlinking dynasties with a master strategist's precision. Even as the sun set on her political twilight years, Eleanor's shadow stretched across the continent, a queen unsilenced by time. Beyond politics, Eleanor's patronage of the arts was unrelenting. Her courts were alive with the trill of lute strings and the sharp tang of ink drying on parchment. Chivalric codes, epic tales, these were nurtured by her hand, proving a bustling court was as potent as armor. Across France and England, her ear for courtly love songs shaped a cultural legacy resonating through Europe's cathedrals and castles, her influence casting ripples across poets' quills and knights' oaths. Eleanor's diplomacy was as sharp as jeweled daggers, strapped discreetly under a sumptuous gown. Whether steering treaties or nurturing alliances, she balanced affections and enmities, ensuring her influence endured as a shaper of nations. Her machinations were often whispered about in smoky taverns, tales of a woman who could bring kings to heel with grace and wit. The clink of gold, a mere echo of her true currency, her adept mind. The myth of Eleanor has always trod closely beside the woman herself. Chroniclers painted her as both harpy and heroine, yet none could deny her impact. Her legacy is a quilt stitched from history's hard truths and the allegories woven by storytellers throughout the ages. Beneath embellishments lay the heart of a ruler, unyielding and profound. Today, Eleanor's enduring essence echoes like a troubadour's ballad, a persistent call through history's annals. Her story, a torch in time's dimly lit corridors, remains a testament to resilience and influence. She defies medieval queen's usual trappings to stand as a reminder that long before hashtags and headlines, there were women like Eleanor, daring to defy a world that sought to constrain them. Her life invites us to retell it, learn from it, and marvel at its shared humanity and complexity. Mid-12th century England was a time of upheaval, a chessboard of power where each move threatened to topple the realm into chaos. This turbulent era, known as the Anarchy, was sparked by King Henry I's unexpected death in 1135. With no clear male heir, the king boldly designated his daughter Matilda as successor. A woman on the throne was a notion as foreign as a dragon in court, and many balked at the idea. Yet Matilda was no ordinary princess. Her resolve was as steely as her knight's armor. Upon Henry's passing, Stephen of Blois, Matilda's cousin and a nimble opportunist, seized the throne. His swift coronation was less about duty and more about fear of a female ruler commandeering the kingdom. Thus began a battle embodying more than a mere power struggle. It was a testament to society's skepticism toward female leadership. Imagine a world where a king's dying words could ignite wars, where loyalty was a flickering candle in the wind. Matilda, with royal blood and tenacity, was not a figure to be trifled with. Educated and politically savvy from her time as Holy Roman Empress, she returned to England with a wronged woman's fiery determination, intent on claiming what had been promised. However, her path wasn't a simple road lined with welcome banners. It was a labyrinth of bias and opposition. Her arrival in England in 1139 was marked by clandestine meetings and whispered plots, flickering torchlight dancing eerie shadows on castle walls as she secured alliances and rallied supporters. Noble halls buzzed with her presence, alive with swords clash and armored soldiers clamor as Matilda's forces pressed their claim against Stephen's kingship. London, the kingdom's heart, was tantalizingly within reach by 1141. Matilda's entry was a moment weighted with triumph, poised on coronation's cusp. But the city's loyalty was fickle, and the support she garnered soon slipped through her fingers like sand. Her retreat, while a blow, was not the end, but a juncture painting a tragic yet resilient portrait of her struggle for acceptance in a patriarchal society where the throne seemed forever just beyond her grasp. Matilda's tale was punctuated by daring escapes, one of the most legendary occurring in the winter of 1142. Besieged at Oxford, dressed in white to blend with snow, she slipped past Stephen's forces, a ghostly apparition vanishing into the night. Such feats reveal her as a figure who defied fate through sheer wit and courage. Even as Stephen was captured in 1141's Battle of Lincoln, a moment when power teetered on a knife edge, Matilda's victory was ephemeral. Feudal politics were a treacherous landscape where battles won physically were often lost politically, and Stephen's eventual release was a testament to medieval diplomacy's intricate web, where negotiation prevailed where force could not. Throughout this turmoil, Matilda wielded diplomacy like a sword, her meetings echoing with goblets clink and hushed oaths. This art of subtlety became her unseen battleground. The pen was often mightier than the sword as she stitched fragile alliances across a realm full of restless lords and shifting loyalties. Each conversation cloaked in ancient hall shadows. The legacy of these tumultuous times didn't let Matilda ascend the throne, yet it paved the path for her son Henry II to solidify the Plantagenet dynasty. Her dogged pursuit shaped an understanding of sovereignty and opened doors for future generations, revealing rulership wasn't solely about strength, but also endurance, intellect, and adaptation. Against this backdrop of war and intrigue lay the deeper theme of gender and authority. Matilda's pursuit of the English throne unveiled her time's stark realities, highlighting the barriers women faced in power roles. As she navigated these treacherous waters, Matilda became a beacon of resilience. her story etched in the hearts of those who dared to dream of a different world. Reflecting upon Matilda's life, one cannot help but feel her spirit echoing through history's annals, a testament to perseverance against insurmountable odds. Her legacy is a reminder that history isn't only about those who succeed dramatically, but also about those whose resolute strength shifts tides, inciting change and inspiring generations to come. Matilda's journey, marked by shadows and light, war and wisdom, ensures her place as an enduring symbol of struggle and conviction in time's ever-turning wheel. In medieval castles' dim corridors, where flickering torches cast long shadows, queens of yore donned the invisible crown of regency when their kings rode off to war or crusade. These queens were no mere placeholders. Behind every regal decision lay the influence of these women who bore governance's weight upon their slender shoulders. With their husbands absent, they wielded sovereign power, maintaining stability, managing treasuries, and warding off opportunistic threats lingering like whispers in the dark. It was in these solitary moments that they brokered alliances, quelled rebellions, and passed edicts, their impact echoing through the ages. Yet regency was not for the faint of heart. It demanded acute political acumen, a knack for navigating labyrinthine court intrigues, where loyalty was as fickle as a sparrow in flight. Regent queens balanced authority's precarious scales, mindful any misstep could lead to their undoing. History's pen was ready to inscribe their fates as masterful rulers or mere interim caretakers, every move dissected with as much scrutiny as a knight's move on a chessboard. Consider Isabella of France, who engineered one of her time's most audacious power grabs. Married to England's King Edward II, Isabella endured a turbulent relationship seasoned with infidelity and favored advisors. When crown tensions peaked, she seized the mantle of regency. Isabella's regency was an artful dance, underpinned by alliances with disgruntled nobles, forming a coalition potent enough to challenge the throne. Her eventual overthrow of Edward, replacing him with their son, showcased not just her political finesse, but her resolute defiance against an era seeking to confine her. Blanche of Castile's regency during her son Louis IX's minority paints a picture of deft diplomacy intertwined with a readiness to defend her realm with sword in hand. As an outsider in turbulent political terrain, she wielded influence like a seasoned tactician, holding the French court together amid mounting tensions. When rebellious barons threatened chaos, Blanche donned leadership's armor and quashed the revolt known as the War of the Sardines with decisive force worthy of her lineage. Regent queens' lives were a delicate balancing act, a high-wire performance managed under their realm's watchful eyes. While governing their husbands' or sons' kingdoms temporarily, they had to walk a fine line, ensuring actions didn't hint at a desire for permanent control. They faced relentless scrutiny, every decree and decision echoing through grand halls, a testament to their ability to govern, yet not overreach in a patriarchal world. Alliances were their lifeblood, with a court as cunning as it was grand. They forged trust in friendships where possible, while outmaneuvering rivals with a queen's grace, weaving a tapestry of delicate symmetry in an era governed by heavy-handed rule. Nobility provided as much support as challenges, each relationship a potential landmine or a boon for regency stability. Stakes were grand, every alliance a gamble that could bolster their rule or herald their downfall. Economically and legally, they shouldered responsibilities traditionally reserved for male counterparts. Queens dispensed justice in medieval courts' echoing chambers, their verdicts whispering through time's annals. Balancing nobility and peasantry needs, they fortified rule with equitable alliances while managing a kingdom's volatile treasury. Proper resource allocation meant armoring the realm against external threats or nurturing prosperity through peace. Regent queens were not merely vessels of governance, but influential patrons in their own right, leaving legacies of artistic patronage and architectural grandeur. Through endeavors, they not only immortalized their age's artistry, but also invested in the cultural currency defining their reign. From majestic cathedrals piercing the sky to opulent tapestries adorning castle walls, Regent queens knew art could immortalize their reign as powerfully as any edict. But behind majestic courts and regal duties lay personal sacrifices that could not be ignored. These queens found themselves alone in dim chambers, far from trust and comfort, caught between duties and personal longings. They bore the weight of both crowns and familial roles, dancing between public demands and private lives, often with little support, enduring isolation like recumbent, shadowed figures on a stage of grandeur. Success and failure were two sides of an unforgiving coin flipped in public and historical opinion's court. Some regent queens emerged triumphant, their legacies fortified kingdoms, while for others, failures cast long shadows, often twisted or amplified by their time's biases. Assessing these outcomes invites modern reflection on leadership and gender dynamics, offering empowerment stories resonating in their defiance of contemporary limitations. In medieval torches' flickering light, these queens stand as symbols of leadership undaunted by gender. Their strength, intelligence, and resilience continue to illuminate understanding power's timeless, ethereal nature. Through adversity and change, they remain voices from the past, narrating tales to a modern world ready to listen, eager to learn from history's echoes. In a time when cold steel echoed across battlefields and power hung delicately by a thread, queens were not mere figureheads painted in ornate crowns. They were warriors, shaping wars with the same deft hand that guided nations. Margaret of Anjou, fierce and unyielding, emerged from the Wars of the Roses like a storm, her influence as powerful as the tides. Her marriage to the troubled Henry VI was a bridge of diplomacy between England and France, but Margaret's ambition saw her transcend usual roles expected of queens. Leading armies with iron will, she became the heart of the Lancastrian fight, her very presence a testament to a queen's potential in warfare's male-dominated domain. In another twist of fate, Elizabeth Woodville, the White Queen, played politics with a gambler's nerve and a lover's heart. Her marriage to Edward IV, steeped in scandal and ambition, challenged traditional norms. Once a commoner, Elizabeth maneuvered through court life's viper's nest, securing her children's futures amidst shifting allegiances. Her eyes on the throne, Elizabeth wielded influence with a deft hand, protecting her son's birthright against looming threats, using court whispers as her most trusted allies. Betrayal's sharp scent and rebellion hung heavily during Isabella of France, the fearsome she-wolf's reign, queen consort to Edward II. She walked power's tightrope with calculated poise, alliances forged in the crucible of resentment against her husband's favored companions. Isabella's eventual rise saw her shatter traditional bonds, playing the English political chessboard with exiled noble Roger Mortimer, ultimately dethroning Edward. Yet like a shadow cast in a kingdom's flickering light, her rule was fleeting as she eventually faced deposition at her son's hands, leaving a legacy painted in shades of gray, both savior and villain. Mary of Guelders, poised in Scotland's chill, showcased strategic regency with unparalleled grace. As regent for her young son James III, Mary deftly shielded her lands from English encroachment through alliances and cunning military defenses. Her fortifications were like stone sentinels guarding Scotland's borders. Her regency stands as a chapter of enduring resilience, proving the throne wasn't merely defended by men's swords, but fortified by a queen's strategic mind. To the south, Eleanor of Provence's keen insight was a balm to England's troubled politics. As wife to Henry III, her influence extended beyond arranging marriages and courtly arts. She served as a diplomatic bridge through the Barons' War, easing tensions with a deftness that smoothed rebellion's troubled waters. Her presence at court was like a subtle perfume, lending stability and nurturing alliances that fortified her family's reign amidst dissent. Catherine de' Medici's shadow loomed large over French politics, a testament to the blend of diplomacy and cunning embraced by queens who knew survival's fierce dance. As mother to 3 French kings, she navigated political landscapes teeming with religious conflict, balancing power with Machiavellian flair. Her reign unfurled with precision, twining espionage and marriage alliances to steer France through tumultuous times. Catherine's influence was complex and enigmatic, a reminder of the understated power queens wielded through stealth and strategy. In Naples' sunlit courts, Joanna of Naples was enveloped in intrigue and betrayal. Ascending to power amidst whispers of regicide, Joanna maintained her throne with steady resolve, battling threats from within and beyond her borders. Her tenacity and constant upheaval paints a portrait of a queen whose strength subverted her time's patriarchal expectations. Philippa of Hainault's gentle touch amid England's conflicts speaks of a queen whose diplomacy strengthened her husband's realm. Bolstering ties with the Low Countries amid the Hundred Years' War, Philippa's clever negotiations left their mark, deftly wielding influence to support the crown from behind courtly Grace's veil. Her story reminds us of diplomacy's power, a tool often more potent in a queen's hand than the sharpest blades. Anne of Brittany's life unfolded as a saga of dynastic dreams, her marriages helping steer France toward stability. Determined to preserve Brittany's vibrancy amid royal alliances, Anne's influence shaped the realm, reinforcing cultural identity while entwining her fate with the French throne. Her legacy was crafted in the treaties she brokered and alliances she forged, a testament to queens as architects of dynasties. These queens, in their multitude of roles, profoundly impacted medieval power's ebb and flow. Their stories illustrate a time when gender could be an obstacle, yet these women found paths where power was not easily defined. They were not merely keepers of peace or conflict. They were resilience's essence, leaving legacies as enduring as the stones of castles they defended and dynasties they crafted. Their tales reflect rule's timeless complexities, spurring us to ponder power's fragile dance against history's backdrop, reminding us that echoes of their triumphs and trials still resonate in time's corridors. In medieval Europe's tapestry, power was woven as tightly through kinship as conquest. Marriages served as calculated moves on the political chessboard, with queens at these intricate strategies' epicenter. Kings and nobility knew well that a matrimonial union could end feuds, secure alliances, or even stave off invasions. Thus, marriages weren't personal commitments, but acts of statecraft, sealing treaties and shifting entire kingdoms' destinies. A queen's marriage often came with consequences far beyond the wedding feast. It brought a web of obligations, political promises, and sometimes betrayals should any party falter. Queens learned to navigate these complexities. Take Isabella of France, for instance. She seamlessly integrated into foreign courts, using her position to subtly influence decisions and maneuver in her homeland's favor. Through their unions, queens turned soft power into a potent force within medieval power and allegiance codes. Yet while marriage was a strategy, it was fraught with duality of empowerment and subjugation. Queens were often peacemakers, a balm for tensions in warring states. Still, this role didn't shield them from becoming pawns, their fates intertwined with political needs beyond their control. They operated in tumultuous waters, deploying diplomatic skill to balance diminished autonomy with significant influence. Queens embraced this duality and navigated court power's web with craftiness. Eleanor of Provence exemplifies how a queen defied expectations. At 12, she married Henry III of England, entering a realm rife with suspicion toward her foreign influence. However, Eleanor excelled within this hostile environment, establishing herself as a formidable political presence. Through strategic alliances and adept negotiation, she transformed her marriage into a powerful instrument of influence. These queens even shaped medieval land boundaries. Some excelled in treaty negotiations, reshaping the political landscape with remarkable finesse. Figures like Margaret of Denmark and Isabella of Castile maneuvered with deftness, influencing generations with their actions. They bridged diverse interests and emerged as master negotiators, crafting compromises that avoided bloodshed and solidified new alliances. The influence of queens reached far beyond their courts, intertwining charm with acute political astuteness. However, not every queen's marriage facilitated peace. Some became liabilities, their unions entangling them in controversy. Marriages to problematic partners turned queens into targets rather than mediators, escalating conflicts rather than resolving them. Take Joan of Navarre, for example. Her marriage to a controversial figure strained alliances, but she turned adversity into opportunity, using her precarious position to showcase ingenuity and resilience. Queens walked a tightrope, torn between loyalties to homeland and adopted countries. Their dual identities made them skilled diplomats, reconciling competing demands while wielding influence with a delicate touch. Catherine of Aragon exemplifies a queen wrestling with familial politics, yet sustaining cultural fluency, a testament to the diplomatic balance they achieved. Queens' marriages were more than political. They facilitated cultural and religious exchanges, sometimes with profound results. These unions, notably between a Christian queen and a ruler of another faith, symbolized massive cultural shifts. Anne of Kiev, for instance, became pivotal in pagan courts' conversion and cross-cultural exchanges. Their religious influence transcended secular domains, nurturing hybrid customs and fostering interconnectedness in an era defined by rigid borders. Love, though rarely the foundation of these alliances, still played into marriage politics. For some queens, resistance against abusive marriages took form in political defiance or subtle influence. Despite restrictive constructs, marriages sometimes inspired resistance or alliances built on mutual respect. Queenly power often intertwined love, duty, and political strategy, personal dynamics shaping policy and asserting political resonance. Kings and nobles who underestimated queens' political resources learned to rue their mistakes. Far from passive participants, queens skillfully manipulated matrimonial roles to influence policies and secure power. Whether in succession disputes or legislative reforms, queens mastered mapping out marriage as a strategy, elevating themselves as political forces to be reckoned with. Though centuries have passed, medieval queens' legacies resonate in today's diplomatic world. These historical unions establish precedent still reflected in modern state relations and negotiations. Queens' demonstrated personal influence remains entwined with political influence, offering enduring lessons on power dynamics and diplomacy. Their narratives transcend time, underscoring a continuity shaped by marriage's diplomatic potency, a legacy persisting through the ages, geography, and evolving governance forms. In medieval castles' dimly lit corridors, where shadows whispered secrets and candlelight flickered against stone walls, queens often wielded a power as potent as it was concealed. Though bound by a patriarchal society seeking to limit roles to the sidelines, many of these women masterfully orchestrated subtle, yet formidable forces behind the throne. Their influence wasn't inscribed in law, yet in court's quiet corners, it was as real as any crown. Theodora of the Byzantine Empire stands as a testament to this veiled dominance. With intelligence networks spun across borders, trusted advisors, and a strategic mind as sharp as any general's, she could deftly alter events many believed beyond her reach. Even as conventions demanded queens remain peripheral, they mastered quiet manipulation's art. Whispered alliances, covert operations, and a steady stream of intelligence required precise calculation for every decision. Authority balanced precariously on societal perception's edges, knowing discovery could lead to ruin. Yet despite these stakes, resilience and resourcefulness carved out spaces within male-dominated arenas. Stories of such women are a testament to intrigue's subtle power and the indomitable spirit of those who knew when to pull destiny's strings, even if history forgot to write their names in larger chapters. Amidst these shadowy maneuvers, politics was a perilous game of life and death, where assassination became not just a strategy, but a reality for those on and off the throne. Tales surrounding figures like Lucretia Borgia, accused of creeping poisonings and dark plots, may flirt with exaggeration but underscore lethal stakes involved. The courtly atmosphere was fraught with tension, as a single meal might herald betrayal. Queens were not only framers of these designs but often stood directly in their crosshairs, underscoring their precarious positions. For some, like Elizabeth of Russia, eliminating threats was a necessary safeguard, ensuring unchallenged reigns. Yet this too had its dangers, as one wrong move could escalate into dreadful consequences. In these courtly webs, even a whisper of a plot needed calculation. Each step advanced with both boldness and caution. Spy networks and gathering secrets played into a queen's power toolkit. Queens like Isabella of France were not ignorant of well-placed spies and informants lurking in hallways or intercepting letters. This network offered a window into military strategies and diplomacy's shifting winds. Beyond mere secret collection, spycraft involved understanding human nature, manipulation, and deception. Queens had to exercise control that could subtly redefine narratives to their advantage, turning information into a weapon as sharp as any dagger. Poison, that insidious shadow in royal intrigue's annals, often became a whispered counterpoint to queens' and noblewomen's overt political actions, like Catherine de' Medici. Whether through rumored tinctures or tales, poison's specter reflected a realm where appearances were deceiving. Queens who mastered this quiet craft might shift the landscape without uttering a word, a toxic display of power and deterrence alike. Even if historical evidence is as murky as the bruise, these tales of poison reveal trepidation and speculation, characterizing medieval courts, a world where unsettling whispers fostered an aura of supreme caution. In a world where the sword didn't always win, whispers were silent assassins. Queens excelled at using words as weapons, their rumor-weaving, destabilizing opponents with whispers of doubt, breaking alliances, and planting discord seeds proved a psychological gamble, requiring a nuanced understanding of human behavior. Such manipulations could unravel at any moment, leaving queens vulnerable to their own webs. Mastery of this intricate dance was essential, allowing them to wield power without drawing blood, unseen architects of discord whose influence sculpted fates unseen. Alliances were the bedrock upon which a queen's influence expanded. Marital contracts, familial bonds, and political alliances were levers of considerable power. Adroit queens like Elizabeth Woodville understood alliances were fluid, requiring constant attention and adaptation. A marriage could bring security or end in ruin. Support from powerful families could elevate or entrap. Navigating these relationships demanded diplomacy and shrewdness, as power's balance often depended on these ever-shifting ties. Each relationship served as a thread in a tapestry of political resilience and maneuverability. Yet for all their cunning and resilience, there were queens whose stories ended in tragedy, their fates cautionary tales of court's lethal nature. Anne Boleyn and Mary, Queen of Scots, illuminate perilous heights such women aspired to, only to fall when machinations turned against them. Their downfalls were precipitated by the very political machinery they once controlled, with misaligned alliances or rivals sealing their fates. These stories resonate with tragedy, exemplifying both a queen's power's vulnerability and volatility. Medieval queens enduring in history were more than figures of tragedy. They were lessons in surviving an unforgiving world. Their lives showed the need for adaptability, for reading court's significant undercurrents and building trust where there was little. They impart timeless lessons in resilience, in seeing beyond present dangers to future possibilities. Understanding leadership's core often lay in astute perception and strategic use of influence. Their stories remind us that beyond conventional narratives, quiet strength buried in their paths changed the world more than many might imagine, leaving a legacy shrouded in both mystery and revelation. In the medieval world, a queen's value lay not in wisdom or beauty, but ability to produce heirs. Securing the dynasty's future was crucial for kingdom stability. Without a line of succession, chaos loomed like a storm. Pressure was immense, a silent demand whispering through cold stone corridors, echoing in torchlit chambers. Queens, often married at tender ages, were thrust into a world where worth was judged by life bodies could bring forth. Success meant celebration and reverence, while failure could lead to obscurity, abandonment, or even confinement in a nunnery. This expectation was woven into medieval life's fabric, making fertility a divine duty. Childbirth during these times was an ordeal fraught with peril. Absence of modern medicine turned bringing new life into a dangerous venture, like stepping onto a battlefield armed only with prayers. Conditions were dire, devoid of hygiene. Queens faced these trials with stoic bravery, supported by midwives and ladies-in-waiting, in birthing chambers steeped in religious icons and whispered invocations for divine protection. Yet mortality's shadows loomed large as histories record around 1 in 3 women succumbed to childbirth-related complications. A grim reality even queens weren't spared. Kingdom's fate often hung in balance with each labor, court holding its breath, offering hastily whispered prayers to heavens. Some queens, however, defied these odds, like Eleanor of Aquitaine, whose tale is etched in history alongside the 10 children she bore, future kings among them. Her fertility was a linchpin in 2 of Europe's greatest realms' dynastic strategies, making her life a vivid tapestry woven with political alliances and regal ambitions. Her story isn't just one of maternal prowess, but a testament to how queens could wield the womb's power to shape empires. Alongside her was Blanche of Castile, who, despite the era's oppressive gender roles, balanced motherhood with statesmanship. She was regent for her son Louis IX, using her ability to produce heirs as both shield and sword against rebellion and opposition's tides. In medieval power's chess game, childbirth was a strategy as potent as any military maneuver. An heir's birth bolstered a queen's standing. A son was a boon, reinforcing dynasty's vitality and ensuring continuity. Celebrations ensued, woven with opulent feasts and solemn church ceremonies as kingdoms rejoiced in succession security. Yet daughters, while invaluable, often represented diplomacy more than power, futures tied to strategic marriages. This complex dance of inheritance and alliance made the birthing chamber as crucial as the throne room in shaping medieval geopolitics. Yet barrenness's specter cast a long shadow over many royal marriages. Infertility, shrouded in mystery and misunderstanding, was seen as a divine curse, a mark against a queen's worth. Childless queen's plight was heavy with whispers of divine displeasure and accusations of witchcraft or curses, reducing stature and often leading to divorces, shaking alliances' foundations. But infertility wasn't always clear-cut, complicated by stress and societal pressure, without understanding reproductive health. Even devout Anne of Cleves bore childlessness burden, a pious woman cast aside in a world ruthless in its demand for heirs. In this tapestry of motherhood, wet nurses played unsung roles, nurturing royal offspring, freeing queens to recuperate and prepare for next political or maternal duty. This wasn't merely convenience, but adherence to aristocratic norms, where breastfeeding was seen as incompatible with noble stature. Queens, thus unburdened, could steer kingdoms, weaving influence from shadows, while wet nurses tended to nursery's cries. Childbirth's narrative was also ripe for royal propaganda. An heir's birth demanded a parade of heralds and crafting family portraits, intertwining personal joy with public spectacle reinforcing stability and divine favor. These orchestrated moments silenced doubts about succession, casting queens as serene life-givers in artistry, speaking to strength and purpose beyond utility. But these tales' glittering veneer held darkness. Many queens paid ultimate price in pursuit of heirs. Just as kingdom held collective breath, ready to echo with hope and renewal, tragedy often struck. Annals recall women like Queen Mary of Scots and Queen Jane Seymour, whose deaths in childbirth plunged realms into mourning and set the stage for political tumult, stark reminders of peril faced. Yet out of struggle and perseverance, legacies emerged, children bearing mothers' dreams wait. Queens like Elizabeth Woodville navigated turbulent times to secure children's ascendance, crafting legacies surpassing traditional roles. These children, molded by power's calculated hands, carried forth resilience tales born from maternal ambition. As their stories unravel through history's pages, medieval queens rise beyond prescribed roles, shaping kingdoms with a legacy challenging conventional narratives. Figures like Matilda and Eleanor of Aquitaine reveal a tapestry where the womb's power, both blessing and curse, transcends time, weaving influence not just through progeny, but through indelible marks left upon the medieval world. In medieval power's shadowy halls, queens stood on a precarious precipice between saintliness and sorcery. This dual image mirrored society's complex relationship with powerful women. Revered by some as divine figures, queens were often seen as nations' pious mothers, lives steeped in incense and church's sanctity. Queen Margaret of Scotland embodied such devotion, weaving legacy through charity and reform, shaped by unwavering religious dedication. Incense's scent and sacred hymns' solemnity painted her reign with holiness hues, earning canonization and subjects' warmth. Conversely, the same influence elevating a queen to saintliness could become tinder for witchcraft accusations. When societal norms' winds shifted or power balances were disrupted, witchcraft whispers rose like an ominous chant. Joan of Navarre was one such queen who, despite keen political acumen, was entangled in these allegations' dark web. Medieval superstition's cloak, heavy with fear, draped over her as rumors patter, and suspicions crackle cast shadows on her governance. Queens often intertwined intricately with the church to fortify positions. Alliances with this spiritual titan, vital as iron armor. Eleanor of Provence, through religious houses' patronage, found an anchor amidst her time's turmoil. Monks' sonorous chants and prayers' peaceful murmurs cloaked her reign in sanctified authority's cloak. Yet the church was a fickle ally, easily turning stern gaze into reproach. Dread of being marked as heretical loomed over queens like thunderheads darkening sky above noble towers. In medieval Europe's politicking courts, wielding sorcery accusation became a calculated move to depose influential queens. Armors clattering and hasty footsteps echoed down stone corridors, spoke of power plays and palace whispers. Queen Isabella of France, pivotal in King Edward II's downfall, felt such accusations chill. As if crowned by shadows, sorcery and dark arts claims clung to her actions, tarnishing reputation in eyes of those fearing a determined woman's strength. These witchcraft claims served as a convenient scapegoat, explaining away political turmoil or masculine failure in an era where stepping beyond prescribed roles was sinister. In a realm where prophecy and mysticism danced on politics' periphery, Anne Neville's court with astrologers and prognosticators thrummed with expectation. Cards shuffle, astrologers' soft whisper interpreting stars. These were sounds of a queen's court alive with superstition and hope. Queens like Anne dabbled in these arts, courtly cloisters alive with mystic air. Yet prophecy was a dangerous game, edges sharp and hazardous. Reliance on foresight could tip a queen into suspicion's abyss, branding her sorceress rather than seer. Saints' relics, bones wrapped in golden reliquaries, became temporal power instruments in a queen's hands. In cathedrals' hallowed chambers, queens like Blanche of Castile held these artifacts as divine right's sacred credentials. Her use of Saint Denis relics was a testament to wit and acumen, securing son's claim to throne against a fractured France's backdrop. These relics, imbued with reverence's aura, echoed sanctity tales and silent presence, marking queens holding them with a divine sheen. Yet disputes over authenticity and ownership could strip away holiness's veneer, unraveling a queen's claimed sanctity and revealing frailties in political armor. In saintliness tapestry woven by charity and devotion acts, queens like Elizabeth of Hungary stood as radiant threads, gentle touch and kindness towards poor stitched sanctity and grace stories into history's pages, transcending gender's earthly constraints. Incense's fragrance and faithful's whispered blessings wove her into church's legendary fabric, a living saint. Yet saintliness' path was as political as pious, a narrative shaped by allies and successors eager to bolster legitimacy through a queen's sanctified memory. Thus, a queen's life was transformed into virtue's chronicle, deeds interwoven with a grand narrative of divine favor and church politics. Some queens took the harder road, paths marked by rebellion rather than piety. These are tales of queens whose ambition burned brighter than incense. Like Empress Matilda, whose determination to claim English throne defied expectations laid upon her gender. Her legacy, marked by swords clash and tradition's defiance, was one of audacious ambition and relentless drive. In battlefield's dust and court intrigue, these queens crafted leadership narratives focused on strategy and resilience rather than saintliness. Despite risks, these rebellious spirits redefined queenship in own shadowy likeness, shaping a medieval world where to be a queen was to walk fine line between piety and potent influence, divine grace, and dangers of wielding power without restraint. In medieval history's complex tapestry, queens often wove legacies through acts both grand and whispered. Overshadowed by male counterparts, these women were hidden architects of worlds, crafting realms with stone and spirit. Beyond power's closed doors, queens invested in the divine and tangible, marking influence on landscapes through cathedrals, abbeys, and monasteries. These sanctuaries were not mere structures. They were vital to cultural and social life, nurturing learning and art. By supporting religious centers, queens legitimized reigns, crafting lasting testaments to influence. Take Westminster Abbey, expanded by Queen Matilda, William the Conqueror's wife. It stands today as a monument to not only her piety, but political sagacity, an embodiment of royal power and religious devotion intertwined. Queens like Eleanor of Castile and Margaret of Anjou understood ecclesiastical architecture as a means to secure dynasties, marrying political ambitions with spiritual legacy, ensuring marks remained etched in history's annals. Queens also transcended mortal bounds through diplomacy, outlasting lifetimes. Treaties brokered were intricate threads in Europe's political fabric, cementing alliances through matrimonies as Catherine de' Medici did, using marriage as a peace-brokering instrument. Isabella of Castile's union with Ferdinand of Aragon not only unified Spain, but set the stage for the age of exploration. These women negotiated with insight and ensured treaties, like seeds, grew beyond their own eras. Often, peace and prosperity bore silent imprints of maternal guidance, vision extending into futures would not see. Chronicles of Time did little justice to these influential figures, often relegating them to margins behind conquering kings. Yet within these shadows, queens shaped narratives, now demanding re-examination. Modern scholarship pulls these women from obscurity, recognizing vital roles in regencies, rebellions, and beyond. Scrutiny of ancient texts uncovers full scope of power, revealing them as key players in time's great dramas, masterminds in shaping European history's very essence. Queens also secured legacies through bloodline, ensuring stable succession in turbulent times. Influence wielded over heirs extended beyond mere lineage. Queens knew a rightful heir meant political continuity and protection against chaos. Eleanor of Aquitaine and Margaret of Anjou understood children were future's architects, carrying on legacies as much political strategy as familial. Navigating court intrigues, familial politicking, and wars, these mothers ensured bloodlines steered dynasties toward prosperity or sometimes ruin. But a queen's influence was not confined to palaces' opulent chambers. Clad often in silk, but never passive, they were warriors at heart. Warlike endeavors were reflections of iron will to defend realms, leading from both horseback and hearts. Margaret of Anjou, leading in the Wars of the Roses, epitomized strategic prowess. Proving martial audacity knew no gender. These queens strategized campaigns and engaged directly in battles, reflecting being raised in a crucible of political maneuvering. They stood as equals to marshaled forces of husbands or adversaries. Yet many queens were eclipsed by time, feats reduced to whispers in history's grand narrative. Often erased or minimized, tales are a jigsaw of history's biases. Factors such as dynastic shifts or chroniclers' neglect have left gaps modern historians strive to fill. Discovering these stories unveils untapped insights into time's power dynamics, bringing voices like Melisande of Jerusalem or Urraca of Leon from shadows. By piecing together whispered stories, we gain fuller understanding of the medieval era, recognizing these often overlooked women's impact. Artistic patronage was another avenue through which queens expressed influence, as Eleanor of Aquitaine did by fostering a court alive with music and poetry. Queens used resources to cultivate artistic expressions, reflecting tastes and political ambitions. Art became a means of both beautifying and legitimizing courts, embedding ideals into cultural memory. Queen-sponsored artistry, from grand tapestries to manuscripts, was a powerful medium for conveying complexities of reigns and ideologies. In an age of brutality, these creative endeavors provided a canvas for demonstrating queenship's softer power, crafting legacies through beauty and culture. Within a superstitious milieu where queens were often entwined with prophecy, saintliness, and sorcery, they carefully balanced these perceptions. Joanna of Navarre's ability to navigate these dynamics became power tales embedded in folklore. Queens manipulated or shunned these superstitions, etching marks upon cultural lore. Myth and sovereignty were inextricably linked, and whether fighting misrepresentations or cultivating them, queens shaped legacies and narratives woven with mystique and reality. Queens also faced public opinion's court, an unpredictable force powerful enough to sway reigns. Whether hailed as matriarchs or plotted antagonists, public sentiment influenced a queen's authority and reach. Queens like Isabella of France navigated varying tides of popularity, using charm, patronage, and policy to maintain favor. In understanding public perspectives, they harnessed perception's capricious power, reflecting strategic awareness ahead of times. As you finish this journey through medieval queens' forgotten legacies, remember these tales of strength and subtlety as you explore more histories and stories. If this journey has intrigued you, like and subscribe for more captivating historical narratives, bringing the past into vivid, unforgettable focus.